Hey guys, is it working? Anybody there? I have no idea. YouTube says offline. Sorry, this is such a nightmare today, guys. Um, you guys got any video right now? Let me know. Sorry, this is just a shit show. Sorry for my language, but it's true. Okay, I see some people. It says I'm offline. I don't understand. I truly don't. It's just taking YouTube a minute to catch up. Okay, I think it's working. So, in the last 20 minutes, I've had to download completely different um, streaming software. It's so weird. YouTube still says I'm offline, but I'm seeing all this stuff come in the chat. So, I don't know what that means, but working right now. Okay. Oh, man, what a nightmare. This Wirecast Play program, Telestream, Wirecast Play, do not get that software. I only talk about things on the internet I like, right? Well, today I'm going to tell you, don't get Wirecast Play. It literally would not work, would not open, would not stream, would not do anything this morning. It kept crashing, which is like a drag when you just want to sign on and do your YouTube thing. Anyway, sound is way better, people say. So does the sound seem better than normal? Because I downloaded this other program called OBS, which is just a free streaming thing. So let me know. Yeah, everybody seems like it's. So he says, let's talk hockey. And Marshall Mel says you've got the new dual ambient, the Hall of Fame too. It's the tone print I came up with. That's awesome. Well, okay, this seems like it's working. Video size is smaller than it was previously. Yeah, I literally, as far as the video size or quality or streaming or anything, I didn't have any time to like. I downloaded a different program completely called OBS, and I just hit stream, and so it's doing whatever it's doing. So okay. Strange though, because it's not giving me any kind of feedback. I'm just going to kind of reload this page. Let's see if the YouTube page here, see if it kind of kicks in. Let's see. Just give me 1 sec, guys. Oh yeah, okay. Now, I just reloaded the page here, and now it's saying that I'm live and all that good stuff. And there's 179 people online. Awesome. Well, I'm really sorry, guys, that I don't have this more technically sorted out. I guess I'm not a video streaming guy. I'm just a guitar player. I hate making people, like, if people are thinking, yeah, he's going to be online. He said he was going to be online at a certain time. I want to be there and make it work. But so, onward. Somebody says, see me at NAMM this month. Yeah, NAMM's coming. Am I ready? No, not really. But I'm trying. So, I got back from Japan about 4 days ago, and I really thought I had the jet lag licked. And I do not have the jet lag licked. I was literally up at 6 a.m. today. Like, I could not sleep I was super tired and then went past it. I don't know if you guys, if you travel a lot and stuff, but you can go past it, and then, like, so you'll be super tired for, like, from, say, mid-afternoon through the evening. You're just trying to power through so that you can sleep at a normal time, and then you kind of go past that hump, and now you can't sleep, and it's like you're over it. So literally 2:45 a.m. I'm like lying there in bed, like, and I lay there for like 4 hours. It sucked. So I've had 4 hours sleep, but I was like, I gotta get up and do this, and then the Wirecast Play thing happened. So I'm a little delirious. Sorry. Okay, so let's get on to music. Somebody says, can I give advice on building a melody? Well, my best advice is actually try and sing the melody. So even if you're not a singer, like hum a melody, or at least become aware of, like, maybe some of your favorite songs, what the melody is, and kind of go, okay, how does the melody work? Like, if you're not used to coming up with melodies, you don't like the ones that you come up with. Even if they're, I'll give you an example. Because We've Ended as Lovers by Jeff Beck. I didn't actually even realize until recently, but there's a vocal version of that song, and I'm gonna forget her name now, but it was Stevie Wonder's ex, and he was producing her debut album. She's an amazing singer, and that's where the original version of "Cause We've Ended as Lovers" came from. So it came out in 1971, I think. It was kind of a fascinating story, actually, because Stevie was producing her record, and they'd broken up and gone through this breakup, and they wrote that song, and it says this is amazing, like sort of poignant song to the relationship with this gorgeous lyric and melody. But anyway, so such a beautiful melody, but Jeff adapted it for guitar, and it's of course one of the most gorgeous instrumental rock guitar songs of all time. But started out as a vocal tune. So when you think that it started out with a person singing the song, your most natural instinct is going to come out through your voice, and that's what I think. And so the goal for me actually is to get to that place where what I hear in my head, like what you're sort of singing in your head, comes out on the guitar. That's the ultimate goal, I think, because then you're going to play less guitaristic things and more melodically kind of direct things that you're sort of feeling right from your your creativity. So that would be my number one advice is hum melodies or sing melodies, then try and make them come out on the guitar. Yeah. Okay, what else? Thoughts on no Gibson? I heard somebody's saying no Gibson at NAMM. Gibson is going to go do the CES show. Is that what it's called? Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, but they're not going to NAMM. I think that, I've talked about this on here before. I think it's unfortunate that they're not just more focused on the things that people love them for, and they're trying to become kind of a consumer electronics company still or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'd love them to be just guitars. Man, when you go to Japan and you look at the amount of Gibson in Japan, gorgeous guitars too. I mean, it's not like they're not making nice guitars. Like the custom shop stuff I see hanging on the wall in Tokyo guitar stores. It's just amazing guitars. Not that you pick them all up and make sure that they're all, like, oh, is this one actually a good weight? And sounds great and all that, but it's just some really beautiful looking guitars anyway, and some of them are going to be great players and all that. Yeah, I don't know what it is, man, about that company. They drive me a little bonkers. I follow them on Instagram, and they put up some beautiful looking guitars sometimes, and then other times they're like, whoa, what is that? But I love Gibson. I do. It's kind of, that's the thing, is that we all love them and we all want them to. I think everybody wants Gibson to, succeed and make beautiful guitars and rock. Okay, what else? I'm gonna go back through the window here and find some other questions and stuff like that. By the way, it's nice to be back here, guys. Thanks for last week. I got back. So I guess I have been back a week. I remember I came back and I could have done a live the next morning. Oh, sorry, that's not true. It was New Year's Day in Kagoshima. So it was the day after New Year's Eve. And I thought, is anybody going to be up at 11 a.m. anyway on New Year's Day? I debated whether or not to get up and do the live from, that was my last day in Kagoshima and last day, so I sort of had a day off. And I thought, I'm just going to kind of not do one this week. So I took a week off. But anyway, thanks for coming back this week, and thanks once again for putting up with the delay start. Good guitar cables in the UK. I've been using the Providence cables a lot recently, just because I hooked up with those guys. They make beautiful cables. They got me some nice cables. I'm very happy with them. They sound great. So I highly recommend those. For sort of other cables that are maybe more commonly available, I mean, I really like what all the Planet Waves stuff that I've tried. Seems great. I'm not like a esoteric kind of cable guy. I don't really, I'm not that person. So I would say that if you've got, some good Planet Waves or something like that are available in your hood, go for those. I really like what they do. Okay, let's moving down here. How was Japan? Japan was great. I worked really hard. I did I think it was 9 days rehearsal straight from the time I kind of hit the ground, had the rest of the day, that day free, and then the next day started rehearsing, did 9 days straight, all the way through Christmas and stuff. And then we moved to Kagoshima. I had a couple days off then moved to Kagoshima from Tokyo. while they were setting up in the arena down there, and then did a 1-day full production rehearsal, and then did 2 shows, and that was it pretty much. And you know, it was hard work. That Tyoshi likes to work. He likes to rehearse and try different things and stuff, and so I worked really hard. But it was, I love it. I love going there. Those people. You know, I love my job. I really do. Kurt says OBS rocks as long as you're not using an external card with a Mac. Seems good to me too. Seems simpler, less problematic. And I'll tell you, the fan is not running full blast on my computer right now, which is great. Wirecast always made it do. I'm going to take you guys to go get a cup of coffee, so I need another one. Yeah, so this OBS software, which is free streaming software, anybody else does this YouTube streaming stuff, seems good. This is going to be delicious. Thanks for waiting. Bear with me. I'm trying to wake up. I'm 4 hours of sleep. Jet lag. Perpetual jet lag. It's kind of become a thing in my life. But I'm not complaining. It's okay. I can handle it. Okay, what's next? Would it be true or false to say recorded audio sounds slightly worse or different once actually recorded? Is post-EQ essential for good sounding guitars? This is from Chris Sherwood. Well, it could be argued that with some methods, you know, that the recording process can actually enhance the guitar sound and make it sound better. I mean, certainly in the days of analog recording, we think of, you know, tape as having a positive effect, I think, on guitar sounds many times. It's tape compression, saturation, and things like that that can occur that affects the guitar sound going down maybe in a positive way, puts it more in your face and all that kind of stuff. But it can definitely go the other way, you know, where the hard thing is capturing the sound in the room and turning it into something that sounds great recorded. You know, many times the most common thing for sure is, you know, it sounds good in the room. Why does it sound so crappy when I put a mic in front of it or whatever? So there's different ways to combat that through using more than one microphone, through using room microphones, through EQ and compression. It's best just to kind of study different methods of recording and mixing guitar and find out what works for you. It's kind of a fascinating thing, actually. Like if you're a guitar player and you haven't gotten into recording, for a long time I said, you know, I'm a professional guitar player, but recording and mixing and producing and stuff like that, I'm a hobbyist, and it's kind of fun. That's like my hobby. Two sides of the same coin, but now I think I'm, you know, I guess equally as, you know, but the recording end of things, I've got to be just as professional or whatever. I can't view it as a hobby anymore because I'm putting out records and songs and even doing stuff like this or whatever. So engineering and mixing and all that stuff has become just as important, I think. So it's just something you have to dive into, and there's so much good stuff out there now on YouTube, on, you know, like mixing tutorials and recording tutorials. I mean, just Google, you know, or YouTube search like how to record great guitar sounds or something like that, and there's going to be a slew of stuff that comes up, and, you know, much of it, really great courses from like Mix Online, I think it's called, and well, there's a company that's put out a series of mixing videos, and you can buy them individually. This is good stuff. It's I can't remember the name of the company right now though, but if you look for his name is Mark Needham, and he's mixing like an Imagine Dragons song or something. So just search his name and Imagine Dragons and mix course or something. You'll find it. It'll pop up. It's like promix.net or so. I can't remember the name of the company. But anyway, you make an account on their site. You go on there. You can buy individual videos that are like mixing and engineering tutorials. And it's famous producers and mix engineers and stuff like that. And they walk you through how they did a track. And it's super cool. There's some great stuff in there as far as mixing drums, guitar, everything. They might not have recording engineering, like how to actually mic things and stuff, but there's other stuff there. I mean, like even Apogee recently put out a bunch of videos, and it's Bob Clearmountain showing how he does, you know, drum miking techniques or guitar cabinet miking techniques and how to record it. That's just free stuff. Anyway, this stuff's all over the internet, and you can learn so much just for free, and it's really fun once you get into it. I love recording. The coolest thing about doing these clinics I did recently with Sir is, where I did a couple up in Canada where I live tracked a song and talked a lot about, engineering and mixing and how I, approach guitar sounds and how to mix them down and maybe a little bit of simple mastering and stuff like that. And I got some great comments after from people that said, I've never thought about or been that interested in recording my own music before, but I'm super pumped to do it now. I want to try. And I thought that was really the coolest thing. I couldn't have asked for more out of doing the clinics than, hopefully maybe inspiring or, somebody to go and try writing their own songs and recording. I think that's really cool. That was kind of my goal. So I was excited about that. Michael says, can I explain gear acquisition syndrome? He has 3 S-type guitars and you're looking for a 4th. Why? Well, it's like Ingve says, less is not more, more is more. Excessive amounts of everything that you like. No, I don't know. I have it too, so I can't explain it. But like my buddy John Shanks once said, well, it beats buying drugs. Get some nice guitars. If that's what it takes. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Could be worse. I still sound Canadian. I do, don't I? Especially maybe when I get tired, like I am right now, kind of jet laggy. Comes out, eh? Oh, yeah. Sure. You can take the boy out of Alberta, but you can't take the Alberta out of the boy, eh? Oh, that's good. Okay, what's next? Can't beat the LA weather. That's true, man. It is 70-something degrees right now, and we feel lucky. Although we do have those crazy fires here once in a while. Michael says, sounds good. Don't hear the standard whooshing in the background. Well, yeah, it seems to be working better, this program. It's not as taxing on the computer, and so the fan's not blowing on the computer into the microphone. That's what usually happens, is the fan kicks in as my computer's heating up. And so I guess I was forced to find a better alternative this morning. What's my favorite thing to eat while I'm in Japan, says Duke? Sushi. I eat probably far too much sushi, but I love it. They make fun of me there about it. The Japanese guys are like, you're crazy. You like sushi more than Japanese people. Kurt says I can resize the window in OBS by grabbing the red line and expanding it. Do I even want to try? Oh, I see. Well, let's try that right now. Yeah. How about that? Okay. That's just working. Seems to work good, the software. So, once again, Google is your friend. I literally was panicking at like 11:06, like, YouTube streaming software. This is what I ended up with. Okay. So I'm way back at the questions now. I gotta move down. Can I recommend a great distortion pedal into a really clean 2-rock with a Strat? Well, the Riot is good. Really good for that because John sort of designed the Riot I'm talking about, to work with bright Fenderish style amps. He really likes sparkly amps. So it's got a tone control on it that you can really dial in. Also, the sort of Eclipse has the Eclipse has basically 2 sides that are identical with tone controls on each side, full 3-band EQ on each side, and a level and a gain on each side. So it's 2 identical channels. You can set them up to be like your crunch sound, your lead sound, if that's what you want. And then it has an overall control. I don't know what they call it, but it might be tone or voice or something. And that control, basically what it is it's a great big low-pass filter. So you can just turn that thing down, and it'll cool out the top end of the pedal. And that works great if you're going into a real bright, clean amp, because you can really, the problem many times is that a bright, clean amp, when you hit a distortion pedal, just sounds like, hail of nails or whatever, just like a blizzard of nails or whatever, just incredibly bright. And what you want is a pedal where you can dial back that treble, dial back the high end coming out of the pedal so that it doesn't, make the amp totally freak out when it hits all that distortion hits the front end. So those are 2 good ones. Let's see if I can think of another that's got a great sort of top end tuning. I can't right now, but the BEOD does it pretty well too. It's got the presence and treble controls that really allow you to kind of tune in the top end. If you want kind of a heavier, I'm talking distortion pedals here because you said distortion. So yeah. A Uncaged says it must be great to play guitar for money. What's it like to do what you love for a living? Well, it is great to do what you love for a living. I totally recommend it. It's not different really than being an independent contractor of any other type, at least for what I do. Like, so you're constantly hustling. There's advantages to, having a job, and like things like benefits, simple things that when you've got a job you can't take for granted, like just somewhat security and health benefits and things like that, 401k and all that stuff. You got to set all that stuff up for yourself when you're a musician that just is kind of an independent contractor for the most part. It varies. You can have a steady union musician type of gig, but most people don't. In those positions, maybe you would have sort of greater access to healthcare and all that good stuff. But okay, so anyway, without getting out of the weeds on that, the good stuff, yes, it's awesome doing what you love for a living. So I really highly recommend it. It's confusing these days, like how to do it for a lot of people. How do you make a living in the music business? But there's examples out there that if you look and get inspired by them, I suppose I'm an example. There's people that are, to me, that are way beyond what I'm doing, that I look to kind of get inspired, and as far as their sort of success as a musician. There's definitely ways to do it these days, and it's hard work, but you can do I fully believe you can. I'm an optimist, you can definitely do what you love and make a living at it. It's totally possible. You just have to believe in it, and then maybe have a little bit of help to get there, and yeah. How many hours did I put into my eruption lessons from several years ago? Says Corey. That was it was like a month or something I took making those videos. It was a lot, but it was the cool process because it's like, you learn something better when you're teaching it almost, and we have to break it down. And through the process of doing the lessons, I found things I was doing wrong. And there's even still something in the lesson that's not quite right. the pull-off lick, I don't know how to pick, but the pull-off, I didn't describe how to do that right. I think I was going... That's what I was doing. So I was playing the E note on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, but it's actually that where you do an upstroke on the high E string to get it. So, as opposed to anyway, it's the same notes, but just instead of doing the E note on the 2nd string, you're supposed to do it. So that's in the video, and I actually didn't quite. That's the one thing that I didn't get quite perfect in that lesson. So you learn things through the process of teaching them. You get deeper into it and stuff. So it was a cool process, but it took a long time, about a month or something like that. So there's a funny story about that, and the funny story about making those lessons is when I was making years later. I met Eddie Van Halen. And what I realized was that in the time that I was making those lessons, I'm not kidding, he was living in a house for a little while that was rented. And you could have hit that house with a stone from where I was living. So I thought that was hilarious because it was like I'm filming this whole, how to play this solo series, teaching this thing and doing it over and over and over and over again. And had he stuck his head out the window and listened, he probably would have been... I always had this vision of like, God, he could have been screaming down the hill, like, shut up, stop playing my solo. I thought it was just, what a weird coincidence, but he literally lived up a hill and around the corner from the place that I was living at the time. So that was really kind of a funny little anecdote about making those lessons. But I really enjoyed making those. It was cool. getting super geeky and inside, something. If you guys want to see something really amazing, I'm going to give a little plug right now for my buddy Blair Sinta. He's got his Sinta's Sounds, Sinta, Sinta's Sounds. He's a drummer, and that's his YouTube channel. So if you go there, he just did a couple videos on how to get the drum sounds for Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight, and also I Don't Care Anymore, 2 classic Phil Collins tunes, with all the gates, and he had DW build him a drum kit, like with the wide open concert toms and all that stuff, and it's really, really fun watch, because he got so geeky about recreating the tunes, and he even does the synth parts and stuff, and drum machines, and the different layers. You don't realize like how layered those and overdubbed a lot of those tunes were. Really, really incredible drum production stuff going on. It's really inspiring, and he gets so deep into it and trying to kind of figure out what Phil and Hugh Padgham were doing when they were doing that stuff. It's really an interesting watch. Probably most of you out there aren't drummers, but even you show it to your drummer pals and stuff, and even if you're not a drummer, it's just from a production standpoint, it's really, really interesting stuff. So it makes me think of when I was doing that Eruption lesson and getting so deep into something. It's so geeky, but you learn so much through doing that. You really do, through dissecting stuff. That's being a hobbyist too, I don't see that as like work. I see it as like, it's kind of like this, that, it's really like a pleasurable focus, trying to like get so deep inside something and learn it really deep. And when you get close, it's really exciting. Great demos and playing. What were your influences? Well, I started out listening to Beatles and the Who, really, and Beach Boys and all kinds of stuff. Early ZZ Top, and that was, my initial kind of stuff that I was super into. And my sister was a metalhead, so she was like listening to, she's just hard rock and metal, so she was way into like Metallica when it first came out, and she knew about everything before anybody else. She would go buy this English magazine, Kerrang, British metal magazine, and so she was really into the metal stuff. And then I had another friend up the street that was getting me to listen to much more, like he was into like the Jam and Bowie and T-Rex and stuff like that, and so there was that whole side, the Who, and obviously Beatles and stuff like that. So I was really a record collector first. He had a huge record collection, this friend of mine, and that inspired me to go out. So by the time I was in the 6th or 7th grade, I had like 55 Beatles records, all kind of crazy picture discs and limited editions, foreign and releases and all kinds of stuff. I was collecting records, and then I started playing guitar around that time, and so that was my early stuff, firmly rooted in Beatles and Who. First song I ever learned on the guitar was I Can't Explain by the Who. Have I checked out the new Vox mini amps yet? Says Hendrik. Are those like the little heads? They're pretty cool. I heard them at GitCon a little bit. I haven't actually played through one. But they sounded good. I heard people playing through them at GitCon. They seem cool, There's kind of a lot of those now. There's little like Joyo ones and different. I played through some of those actually at GitCon too, like a little sort of Marshall JCM 800 style one that sounded good to me. They're fun, I've got the little baby 1-watt Marshall here, which isn't as small as those boxes, but I love that thing. Sure does sound good. JTM1. I mean, once they get to be like under 5 pounds and yay big or yay big, doesn't really matter. It seems to me. It's nice and small. There's some good little small amps out there. Eric says, "What's my favorite onigiri flavor?" Which is a rice ball, Japanese rice ball. I'm gonna go with sake or maguro or ume. Can't pick a favorite. SPL exposure. How closely do I watch this for live or home playing with amps? Not that closely, but I don't really like that much volume. This is funny. I was just sitting there with my Sir Bella the other day and playing with pedals. I moved my Bella into a spot in my room at the studio where I could more easily mic it and play through it, and thought it'd be cool in some upcoming videos and stuff, just have the combo with like a mic on it and say, okay, I played this part through the combo, mic'd here in the room. And some people probably want to hear what it sounds like through sort of a Fender-y, sounding combo, like pedals. And I noticed, I'm sitting there playing through the thing, and I didn't have it even that loud, it didn't seem, but afterwards I was just like, man, my ears are ringing, and I'm just sort of more sensitive too. I think as you get older, even if you don't have like really bad ringing in your ears or anything like that, they do get more sensitive. Like it seems like a shorter period of playing and maybe even lower volume will make them kind of do their thing, you know. So you got to watch it and be careful. Part of the reason why I'm mainly totally cool with using in-ears these days, even though I don't like the vibe with in-ears in, but it's just I know I'm damaging my ears if I've got no in-ears in and you're on a loud stage with really loud side fills and stuff like that going. It's just like, well, I got to wear these things or I'm going to regret it sooner rather than later. So, but I don't like check with like an SPL meter or anything like that generally. Let's see. Thoughts on the DD500? I love the DD500. It's working out great, to tell you the truth. Timeline sounds great. With the DD500, it's maybe more of a thing where I started out with the delays brighter than I have been. I'm an advocate of darker delays, but maybe I was going too dark because I was always having trouble making my delays present using the timeline. Not really the fault of the timeline, more maybe the way I had dialed them in. But with the DD500, just from the pure perspective of like I'm starting with them maybe a little brighter than I used to, and it's making them a little more present. I'm finding in the mix, and I can just hear the delay more, and I'm kind of digging that. There's a few things I really like about it. The expression pedal, the way that you program the expression pedal on the Strymon, that always kind of bothered me. You set a low point and a high point on the Strymon, then you move the knob in between, and that's the range of the expression pedal. But once you've done that, then you need to. It's just kind of you have to do it using the knobs on the timeline, and on the DD500, you go into the menu, and you can only pick one thing that the expression pedal controls. So I pick mix generally, delay mix, but that works for me, and I can set the low range and the high range right there in the on the little menu on the DD500, and that's it's just a better way to do it to me, rather than the sort of the Strymon way of doing it. I mean, that said, I still love the timeline. It sounds great, but I'm totally digging the DD500. It's deep, it's really rad. I haven't even gotten into the new. There's like Binson Echo Rec models in there now. I haven't even tried those yet. The thing worked great. It's a really, really good delay. So I got no reservations about it. My whole board, by the way, that whole new pedal board was flawless. I didn't have a problem with anything on it. It just works perfectly. I love it. So it was a nice downsizing in size, but upgrade in sort of ease of use, and it's real quiet, and it's just a little bit, more ergonomically laid out and everything. I love it. So the pedal board's a hit for me. Really digging it. Readings from Ontario, 2 people say in a row. Hello, Ontario. I know it's cold there right now, right? Like really cold. I've got a friend in Toronto that I've been chatting with, and she doesn't even want to go outside. So it's been brutally cold. And Switzerland says it's brutally cold as well. Brett says, am I going to announce a new amp at NAMM? Well, I can't really talk about what's going on at NAMM. They always get on my case if I do that. But stuff's coming, but not necessarily that. But we are working. We're working. And it's close. Amps. Close. Coming. It's hard to get everything done that you want to get done. But what's coming for amps is going to be really cool. I will say that. It's just down the road a little bit. Where was I holding that 54 conversion Les Paul? So when I was in Tokyo, I found a 54 gold top that had been converted to Sunburst, and had the humbuckers and the whole deal. So that's in a store called Guitar Traders, which is in the last YouTube video I put up, which has been a minute now, a couple weeks. I've been laying off the YouTube, but took a little break. This is my first video back. But so the last video I did, you can see me playing this 54 conversion Les Paul. Really, really great sounding guitar at Guitar Traders in Daikanyama, in kind of close to Shibuya in Tokyo. Let's see here. Somebody's saying, reminds me of what Steve Vai explained about For the Love of God. Maybe that was the melody discussion we were having earlier, how he made the melody. Not sure, but that would make sense, I think. Do I run a compressor or EQ all the time at the beginning of a pedal board to help focus my guitar tone? Pretty much always on always on my clean sound. I have compressors these days. I just love compressors. I don't, unless it's like a semi-gritty clean. If it's a clean, I got a compressor on. I like it. I dig it. I think Andy Timmons is the same way. He uses that Carl Martin compressor, which is a great one. And I think he uses it in front of his dirty sound too. But generally I don't use a compressor in front of dirty stuff, but for cleans, I'm always using a compressor. Now EQ, not really. I just kind of, EQ my clean channel on my amp to sound like I want it to sound. So I don't really use external EQ that much on a pedal board. Okay, part 3 of the video pedalboard build. So I haven't started it yet, but I'm going to, because, and this gets into talking about new music. My sort of intention was to do a song using the new pedalboard and do it for my record. So record a song, track a song completely using the pedalboard, put it on the album, but also make a video out of it, and that'll be the part 3 of the pedalboard build. I took a little bit of on-stage stuff too, just not that much. It was hard to get actually, but in Japan I took a bit of video of that, so that'll be in the part 3 as well. Just that kind of after sound check, showed the setup and stuff like that, the board on stage. So I'll probably include that as well. But yeah, time-wise, probably I guess within the next 3 weeks. I don't know if I'll have it by NAMM. I hope to have it out by NAMM, the part 3. If not, it'll be just after NAMM. So pretty soon. And Jennifer says, "Is my body back on Pacific time?" Well, I thought it was until last night, and then I was up at 6 a.m. So jet lag is a weird one. Sometimes it kicks your ass for 2 weeks. Sometimes it's fine, like you just get over it quickly. And then other times it creeps up on you, and that's this trip. So 4 or 5 days in, I'm having jet lag now. I thought I was doing good, and now it's like smackdown last night. I just couldn't sleep. I was literally up at 6 a.m. I guess I slept 6 till 10 and then got up so I could do this. So, Scott says, "No, I'm a fan of Brian McLeod. Wondering if I've ever tried playing through a Music Man HD 130. Not really. I have a little bit played some of those older Music Man amps, but I'm always intrigued, And Brian, this is the guitar player from a Canadian band called the Headpins, and he was also in Chilliwack. Amazing guitar player that people used to call like the Eddie Van Halen of Canada, I think was what they said. But great guitar player with amazing guitar tone, and wrote some great songs and stuff like that. Did some great work. And used to play through Music Man amps, like cranked up, and also did a thing when he was recording where he would mic the Music Man amps and then play them through a PA where he was recording, and then he would mic the PA. Crazy, but that's the tone on a lot of the recordings he did, I guess. That's as I understand it. So really, really unique way to record guitar. He was a great guitar player. Yeah, and the Music Man HD 130, which is a hybrid amp. I believe it was a solid state preamp and a tube power section. So, it's interesting back in the day how people got their guitar tones, like Ty Tabor too. He's another one. He used those lab amps with the weird Fender guitar that almost nobody else ever used. The Elite Strat from the early 80s, and it had an active, preamp system with the pickups in it, and you plug it into the lab. Like really weird rig, quad reverb, I think, as well for chorus, Alesis. And it sounded amazing. So I loved that kind of, the spirit of the different guitar rigs back in the day and how people got their unique, interesting guitar tones. It's missing a little bit these days, even though there's way more gear out there. Somehow tones are more homogenized, I find, in many ways, even with maybe it's just that back then there wasn't as much stuff, so you got what you learned how to use it to its fullest extent. I think there's a lot to be said for that, like really dialing in whatever you've got and really taking it to the hilt. And maybe it's a unique sound, like a Music Man cranked up through a PA. Really interesting rig that McLeod had. And somebody else was asking what Perplexed is about. Love that tune. That's a hard one. So Perplexed is the Sir SL68, so it was just a play on words of plexi. And it's hard to name instrumental rock songs. So I've been trying to come up with. So the day that NAMM starts, I've got a new single coming out. My intention, by the way, was to have my whole record out like in the next 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. I had a couple setbacks, and it's just not going to happen. But there is a single that's done. So I'm getting the single out. That's coming out for sure, along with some really cool videos and stuff that are going to come out, kind of accompanying it. Can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's starting, I believe, next week. Some videos coming out, and culminating with a sort of a music video of me recording the single for the new record. So the single's definitely coming out, day and NAMM. So maybe that's better anyway, rather than put the whole thing out at once. There'll be one song that comes out, and then shortly thereafter I'll have the record out, hopefully within a month after that, by February. So a little behind schedule, but new music is coming. And I'm really proud. Actually, even just the single has turned out really cool. So, how did I get on that? Well, I was talking about naming instrumental rock songs, and I think I'm going to call that song the Shibuya Meltdown. It's hard to name instrumental guitar songs, because it's like, well, it's arbitrary. There's no lyrics. So what do you do? So Perplexed was just play on words of the amp I used, which is the Sur SL68 Plexi style amp. I wanted to do one song on Guitar Nerd where it was like, it's a very layered album, but I wanted to do one song that was just guitar, bass, drums without a lot of overdubs. It's not quite no overdubs, but you know what I mean, where there's one primary guitar running throughout the song. And incidentally, the single for the new record is like that as well. It's guitar, bass, drums, live drummer. It's Matt. It's not programmed drums or anything. It's Matt Log playing drums. Incredible job he did. And my buddy John Button on bass. And it's the body of the tune, most of it, is just one guitar, bass, and drums all the way through. And it's a classic kind of rocker. It opens up in the middle. But really, my concept for the song was to do a kind of like Hot for Teacher meets Satch Boogie kind of thing, where, you know, the Satch Boogie thing where it's basically one guitar, bass, and drums, but it gets in that weird section in the middle where it totally goes left, and it's not bluesy at all. It's like that weird tapping section. So I wanted to do a similar type of thing where it's like, yeah, it's like basically, you know, boogie, blues, rock song, high energy, high octane song, and then busts open in the middle and totally takes a left turn and goes somewhere else. So that's kind of what it did. The chat jumped forward here, so I'm just paging back, looking for where I was. Wow, there's a lot of people online. There's like 440 people, which is awesome because of my, you know, kind of not getting online on time today and stuff. So I really appreciate everybody showing up. Backing way up here in the chat so I can get some of these questions. I'm going to try and move through some of them faster. Because, wow, there's a lot. Really a lot. Sorry, guys, if I missed some of your questions and you're still there. I don't think I should go back much faster, so I'm not going to be able to get to all these. Just maybe ask again if you were early on and I missed your question. Okay, do I use any preamp or microphone when I record? I have some BAE 1073s, and I have a couple of APIs, and I have a Maris mic pre, as well as a newer DBX mic pre that I actually really quite like. The Maris 440 for the 500 series, as well as the DBX pre. So I'm using all those. It's the Neves are hooked up a lot. They're not Neves, but they're BAE 1073 Neve style pre's. So I really recommend those. How's the album work coming? Good. Says, sorry, what's your name? I can't read your screen name, but you're saying I'd love to see you get Thornley on it. I would love that too, and I may hit up Ian and see if he has time to maybe play something. I think he's going on tour, so he probably doesn't. But there is some special guests on my record, by the way, that I'm really excited about. I'll just tell you, it's like a Laurie Basilio. I've asked Mateus to play on it, and if he has time, I think he's going to play something. So I hope so. He said he would, but I know he's a busy guy. Tim Pierce. So there's some really, really cool guests. And Laurie and Tim did some amazing stuff. It's really cool. Do I dabble on acoustic, and if so, what brand style? I would say I dabble. I'm not like I love acoustic guitar. I mean, but you know, I'm a fairly basic. I'm not like a bluegrass shredder on acoustic. But anyway, my acoustics that I love are my. I've got a Takamine I love, and I've got a Martin D28 that I love. And what else? What are my other acoustics? Those are my main two. Oh, my Taylor 12-string. Last 12-string I'll ever need. Such an awesome guitar. Solid guitar. Um, Given the state of the music industry, can a guitarist truly make a decent living these days? Yes, it's totally possible. You just have to think outside the box. That's coming from Frank. It's not the same as it used to be. So, like teaching traditional lessons, where you're booking students one-on-one, it's difficult. I know it's hard for teachers because there's a lot of stuff online. A lot of kids are learning online, so it's like been difficult. So why not go the new route and create an awesome course or something, or online teaching thing, or teach Skype lessons. When you teach Skype lessons, let's say, you can now go all over the world. If you can attract students, you can be doing lessons with a student in Australia if you're in the U.S. or whatever. So it opens it up wide. So that's just my one example of like the old model, the new model. You have to think differently about the way that you're going to earn a living. Um, it's just different. Rather than selling records, out of a store, we've now moved to streaming and online sales, and maybe there's, GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Patreon accounts, things like that, where it's like, different ways to kind of get people to support you making your original music. So you just have to think about it. It's not the same as it used to be, and you kind of can't fight it. You sort of have to think forward and go, what's something that no one else is doing yet that I can do? Where I can maybe make a living and have some fun playing guitar at the same time. Hello from France. Do I try the Timmy Cochran clone Jan Ray Vimram? What's my opinion about this pedal? Sorry, I don't quite understand your question, but I think you're asking about the whole Jan Ray and clone situation. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know anything about that whole deal other than beyond I have a Jan Ray that I've had for years, and I love the thing, so I just use it, and it really kind of handles that tone for me. I use the Jan Ray in a Tweety warm kind of overdrive style way. Like, it's a great always on kind of, or set it up so that your guitar's kind of edgy and stonesy sounding, and then you can roll the volume back and it cleans up. So set up the amp clean, and then hit it with the Jan Ray to give it a little bit of warm bluesy drive, and then you can roll down for cleans, and it kind of fattens your tone as well. It's a nice fat warm sounding drive, very natural sounding. It's cool. Okay, opinion on the full tone OCD. Good pedal. I used to use an OCD for a while on my board. It was good. Did that kind of 18-watt Marshally thing quite well. I thought it's a good basic drive, ampy kind of thing. They do sound different. There's all those different versions, version 1, 2, 3, 4. I plugged in, because I have a few. I ended up with like 2 or 3 of them. And I tried and did some of the different ones, and I remember going, yeah, they do. There is something to that. Like, they all sound slightly different. I can't remember which one I liked. Maybe the latest version, or the version 3 was my favorite. Let's see. John says, I love learning and playing cover songs. Do I know of any good multi-effects units where I can easily download a patch to sound like the guitarist? Well, a lot of I think Line 6 has like a patch exchange thing, and maybe Kemper has a rig exchange thing. So, for whatever modeler you've got, it seems like Axe Effects, there's one too, right? Like an online kind of patch exchange thing. So there's probably for if you've got one of those kind of multi-effect modeler type things, there's probably something that the company has set up as an online kind of resource for downloading and uploading patches. Let's see here. Hunter says, I'll be learning 2 Broadway books at the same time for guitar soon. The shows are a week apart. How should I balance learning the shows? Good question. More power to you. It's like, because I'm a terrible reader. I would say you just have to kind of, my way of learning things is like, I can sort of digest 3 or 4 songs a day, and then that's it. And then I go back and I work on those 3 or 4 again the next day and kind of like nail them down, because I'll have them the first day and go, okay, I basically get how to play this song. Move on to another one. By the time I've gotten to the 3rd or 4th one that day that I'm working, I've totally forgot the first one. But I don't worry about it. I just move on. I quit practicing or whatever, and then the next day I get up and I go back and I review. And now I start to really nail it and get it under my fingers and go, oh yeah, I remember. Okay, nail those, and then move on and learn a couple more. Then stop the next day, move on, learn a couple more songs. Always reviewing the old stuff. And then about 5 days into that process, this is like if I'm learning songs for a tour, I need to learn like 20 or 30 songs for a set or something. About 5 days into that process, I'll stop learning new stuff and just review what I did. So maybe I'm up to 10 or 12 or 13 songs or whatever at that point. No more new stuff. I'll stop and review those 10 or whatever, and I'll run through them all. And then maybe take a day off or something like that if I have time. And then I'll move on and keep starting to learn the rest. And then all the while, you got to spend time going, it's like that. So don't try and digest too much at once. Learn how you learn best, and sort of respect that, and don't get overwhelmed. But that's my little method that seems to work. I can only absorb a few new tunes a day. Okay. At GitCon with Mick and Dan, I was playing through a GFI Specular Tempest pedal. What did I think of it? It sounded really cool, whatever Dan dialed up. That's the only time I played through it that day, but it seemed really great. I didn't even touch the thing. I was like, whoa, what's this? That's a cool name for a pedal. The Specular Tempest. Sounds like a piece of medical equipment. But definitely cool. Definitely cool. Will there be a Sur PT50? 100 watts are too much for me. Short answer, easy answer is yes. That's going to happen. And I agree. 100 watts are basically too much for me. So I do love having the headroom and stuff and big heads, but everybody's moving towards the smaller stuff these days. So we're working on smaller amps that have awesome tone. So it's definitely coming. What next? Swapping pickups in my PRS C22. Mapletop after more open sound with slightly lower output like Thornbuckers. What sounds do you get in positions 2 and 4? Strat-like or something else? So what you can do on your PRS, because do you have the rotary switch? The inside coils is one sound that I use a lot. The 2 inside coils with both pickups tapped. So that's like the second. This I have one right here. So it's this position on the switch. That's the 2 inside coils, and that's a sound I use a lot for kind of that stratty position sound, out of phase thing or whatever they call it. It works great for kind of clean jangly stuff. And then when the switch is all the way up on my guitar, this pickup is tapped. Next position, it's humbucking. So all the way up would just be this coil, and I use that a lot actually on this guitar. I use the tapped, kind of strat, pseudo strat thing. It sounds great. It's lower output than a regular sort of strat single coil. It's just a little bit lower output, but it still works great. You just pump it up a little bit with a compressor, clean boost, and it basically does the same thing. It sounds really good to me. Works surprisingly well tapped, so that's a sound I use a lot. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a Strat that was rented for me in Japan recently to do one song, and the song was, I needed to tune the guitar in E flat, and so they had this rented Strat there, and I chose to use this guitar. I had my tech tune it down for that one song in E flat, hand me the guitar, and then I would play it, and then he'd tune it back up. And this guitar sounded better than the rented Strat for the single coil neck position sound. So they can sound really good tapped. So that's what I recommend, is maybe on the switch if you can do a tapped, I don't know if there's a way to do that with a PRS rotary, but have a tapped neck pickup in one of the positions, and then also have the inside coils of both pickups. The outside coils I've never tried. Maybe that's a cool sound too, but it's just the way that Sur wires their 200-bucker guitars is the way I always went with it. What am I using for the live stream? Well, at this point I'm using this, I guess it's called OBS, I think, software, which I literally downloaded about 50 minutes ago and figured it out enough to get this going. Somebody's asking how I got the gig with Tyoshi Nagabuchi. It was sort of through a mutual friend, really, that referred me, which is how I get many of the jobs, just through contacts in the music business, really. A guy that worked with Tyoshi a lot. They had been talking about maybe hiring some musicians from the U.S. and he's a producer guy that works with Tyoshi a lot and since become a really good friend of mine. He had called a mutual friend and said, "Hey, can you do this tour?" And he said, "No, I'm not available, but call my friend Pete." So it was really like that, just through word of mouth. Yeah, it's been a really fun 3 years and rewarding 3 years working in Japan, on and off. Okay, somebody has a hum single guitar, and this is Simon, wants to replace the pickups to get a more Fendery sound. Well, I guess you could, if it's hum single with a pickguard, you could always go 3 singles. Give that a try. See if maybe you're just missing having a true single coil in the bridge. One thing you can do if you're feeling like you're missing a single coil but you still want the humbucker sound sometimes is you could do the series parallel switch. So what I mean by that is on my guitar, the bridge humbucker, I can pull the tone pot and it switches the bridge humbucker into parallel, which sounds a lot more kind of like a telly almost, but gets you not a true single coil sound, but something approximating a single coil sound. So that can be something you can do if you're missing that kind of more wiry, lower output bridge pickup sound. That can be a good way to go. How was it working with Linda Perry? Great. I miss Linda. We haven't done anything together for a long time. I saw her a little while ago. She was doing a showcase show for one of her artists at the Hotel Cafe in Hollywood, and I went and saw her, and it was great to see her. I hadn't seen her for years. And we're always like, yeah, we got to get together. It's awesome to see you. And then we're both busy doing other things. But I really want to make that happen. I'd love to work with her again. Because we have fun. She's a trip. She's a riot. Great ideas and everything. I learned a lot from her. But then she's also like she teases a lot, so she's always giving me shit. And, it's fun. I like working with her. Keeps me on the sort of straight and narrow. Having somebody that's sort of busting your chops all the time. That's just how she is. It's like her sense of humor. But she's a lot of fun. Do I know if the Friedman Runt 20 has a dummy load for the speaker out? Yes, I believe it does. It has a fixed resistive load, and you could run it into a Surace. Yes. Yes. Can I do a short lesson on making a guitar instrumental? That would be a cool video. Just coming up with a song from scratch. I mean, there's, like I said, there's going to be some videos coming out really soon, like in the next 2 or 3 weeks here, that are really, really nice videos that where it talks a lot about my process and stuff. So you'll see. It's coming up this week. It's done in collaboration with somebody, so I can't really talk about the details yet. But I'll be posting all the links for them on my Facebook and stuff. And it's kind of what you're saying. It's a lot about the process and influences and what I do for a living and stuff like that. So it's going to be cool, I think. Let's see, what else we got here? Kurt says, I gave Pete Thorn tech support. I feel complete now. Yes, thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. I need tech support. Believe me. Somebody's asking about not eating gluten. Is your gluten-free diet by choice or through intolerance or celiacs like me? Well, I'm definitely intolerant. I don't know if I'm celiac. My granddad was celiac, which brings my risk way up, I guess. But I quit eating gluten because somebody recommended that. I was having a lot of problems, like why does my stomach hurt all the time? Why am I always bloated? Feel like crap. And a doctor said to me, you've got an intolerance problem or some sort of malabsorption problem. It's probably dairy or gluten. Stop both of them for 2 weeks and see if you feel better. So I'd already tried the dairy thing, which helped a little bit, but not completely. And I'm still having a lot of issues. And I thought, gluten, I'd never tried that. And I stopped, and about 2 or 3 days after that, I was like, everything's different. I feel way better. So it was literally that. And then I went to my other doctor and said, I want to get a test for celiac disease. And she said, well, you need to start eating gluten if you've stopped, because the only way to know if you're truly celiac is you have to be making the antibodies to the gluten, and that will happen when you're eating gluten. So if you've stopped, the test is going to come back negative no matter what. And I was like, oh, well, I feel so much better. I don't really want to go back to feeling like crap. So I never got the proper the celiac test. But I just I avoid it. I'm not like militant about it. I don't eat it. So for instance, celiacs many times, it's like any kind of cross-contamination in the kitchen or whatever will cause them a lot of problems, and they don't want to be, but it's like with me, it's like, I get a piece of sushi and it's got, they put ponzu sauce on it. It's technically got gluten in it, but I'll eat that. So, it's the bread and all the obvious stuff. Croutons on a salad, yes, I pick them out. I don't reorder the salad. I'll just, that sucks, a true celiac would probably send the salad back and get it remade, stuff like that, if somebody put croutons on it. Because you can have such a severe bad reaction if you're truly celiac. So I don't know if I am or not, but I do feel way better not eating it. And there's the added advantage of as you get older, it definitely helps you not gain weight. You know, not eating bread. I personally know about 3 or 4 people in my life that well into their 40s, 50s, even 60s quit eating gluten and dropped a bunch of weight without even trying. It was like, whoa, what did you do? You've been hitting the gym? And they're like, nope, just stopped bread. And so that's cool. You know, there's something to it for sure. I mean, people just eat way too much of that stuff. How do I manage effects if I have them more than loops in a switcher? Well, you just kind of have to, if you got more than 1 or 2 pedals in a loop, you have to make notes on your set list, like remember to turn off the compressor because it's in the same loop as the fuzz for this song, or whatever, you know. It's like that. I've only got 1 effect in each loop on my switcher, and then the other effects that aren't in loops are all MIDI controllable, which means that per preset I can choose to bypass them. So say I want the DD500 off, no delay. It's not in a loop, but you purely just make a preset that has it bypassed, you know, when it pops up. So that's really how you do it. Sorry, I don't understand the question. Hey, Pete, have you keep on your rig? Oh, I see. Have I kept on my rig the Digitech Freakout? Yes, and I used the Freakout in Japan quite a bit. It was really cool. I was doing some I was using it less than like crazy feedback and solos. I was using it like for like atmospheric sounds where I would like play a chord with a bunch of verb and stuff, and then I would lean on the Freakout and it would just take off into a bit of feedback and tail out with like a big long reverb. I was using it like that on one song in particular, and it was really cool. Really great pedal, the Freakout. Any solo tours in the future, says Brett. You know, I'd love to do that at some point. I think more what's probably going to happen, you know, in the near future, hopefully, is clinics, which is kind of like touring. But I really want to. I've got this clinic together now. I'm really happy with it. I'm excited about it, and it went really well in Canada when I went and did it. So that I want to I'd love to take a week here and there and go off and do 3 or 4 of them in a row and do that kind of touring, where it's more like essentially a clinic tour. Okay. Would I be on that note? Somebody's in India saying, Saram says, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Sanam, I think, says, would I be open to coming to India on a series of clinics and performing with other guitar-based artists as part of one of my next trips to Japan? I mean, yeah, potentially. You know, I wanted to next year, if I'm going to Asia anyway, which I am, I believe. I want to definitely, you know, explore the possibility of doing clinics. You know, it would make sense to do them in Japan as well as South Korea. And if there was somebody in India that wanted to have me over, I'd be happy to do that if it's in conjunction with Sir, and etc. Somebody says plug in. Oh, it's Jennifer. You know, I got to get that going where I've got audio going so I can jam while we're doing these things. But I barely got it up and running today to do this at all, so bear with me. What 3 songs did I learn that took me to the next level? It's interesting. I don't know if I can pinpoint songs, but really it was more the guitar explosion of technique and all that stuff, I suppose, that happened in the early 80s that really made me... you know, players like Van Halen and stuff, and Steve Vai, and these things were coming out like at you know, every month. It seemed like there was some amazing new album out back then, and that was a great time to be playing guitar. I mean, it was literally like, you know, when I started playing guitar, it's like, oh, the new, you know, whatever, like Diary of a Madman or whatever had just come out, and then it was like Diver Down in 1984 and all this. Oh, have you heard the new Van Halen? Have you heard the new, you know, and then like even great, you know, rock bands or pop bands, you know, the Pretenders or something. Have you heard the new Pretenders album? Have you heard the new AC/DC or whatever? You know, this stuff was just coming out constantly. This is great rock and roll guitar music, so you were constantly like having new stuff to check out and learn all the time. there was a great guitar player, kid named Jim Law in my neighborhood. And he was like, I was pretty good on guitar, and then I saw this guy, and he was like kicking my ass, you know. And he could play like Van Halen stuff and Steve Vai, and you know, he was one of the best guitar players in my hometown. He was about 16. I was around the same age, 15, 16. I think maybe I first met him when I was 14, and he really kind of put the fire under my ass to like practice and learn. He was like, "Whoa, this guy's like, this is like a healthy competition thing," and he was a terrific guitar player. So it was more like that, like just we were getting inspired by all that stuff that was coming out around then, and trying to emulate it and stuff. And it's, you know, not unlike now. I mean, I see these kids now. It's like these crazy guitar players. I mean, with guitar players like Tosin, and you know, playing the 7 strings and 8 strings and headless guitars. And it's like, what is that instrument? I don't even know about that. You know, it's a completely different thing. And they're just doing all this crazy stuff, and getting influenced constantly by what they're seeing online, I think, and it's a similar thing where it's just it's probably if you're 13, 14, 15, and you're just getting into guitar and you saw that stuff, it'd be like, whoa, I want to do that, you know, and be really passionate about it. I'm personally, I don't really have a lot of desire to do those fan fret, you know, that whole style of thing. It's just not really my thing, I guess, but I sure do appreciate it when I see it and go like, wow, like I said, it's almost like watching a classical guitarist or something that I don't do, and it's like that's amazing, you know, what those guys are doing. So a lot to get inspired by these days. So somebody's asking, can I explain or make a video explaining the difference between 44.1, 48K, 88.2, or 96K of the Celestion IRs? So the different sample rates of the IRs, just simply pick the one that your session is in. So if you're, you know, if you're doing recording in Logic, you're going to pick like the bit rate or bit depth, I guess, and then the sample rate. So generally I work at like 24-bit 48K, like a lot of people do. So if I'm doing that, I'm going to pick the Celestions that are also at 48K to load into my session, into the IR loader. So that's all it is. So just check what, you know, if you're loading them into a modeler, many times a modeler has a set sampling rate. So for instance, on the Fractal, you know, you got to use their own cab thing in order to convert the IRs for their gear anyway. But on the Fractal, I believe it's 48K. So you know, you're going to want to use the 48K Celestion IRs, I guess. So yeah, just whatever your session is in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever, and if you're using a loader like the Rosen one or the Mix IR2 or whatever, pick the same sample rate IR that your session is. Do I have an exercise routine to keep in shape? Well, yeah, you know, I don't actually, I go do the gym like 3 times a week, something like that, and I'll just run like a couple miles and do light free weights and stuff, and that's it. I don't want to be huge like this, like Hans and Franz. We're going to pump you up. No, I just try and, you know, getting older, man. I gotta work out. Well, it's gonna start slipping soon. I do worry about it. Good to exercise. You know what? Exercise is good for my brain too. It keeps my mind, like, I feel way more even keel, and you know, it helps the endorphins and all that stuff. Helps you stay positive and feel good throughout the day. I think it makes me sleep better too. Do I find string skipping a hard technique, or have I mastered it? Skipping strings is somewhat difficult depending on what. Yeah, I just work on things like I remember Paul Gilbert talking once in a video about how there's always like one part of a lick, or maybe a certain part of a solo or something you're trying to learn that is the part that trips you up. So focus on that part. If there's a string skipping part or something that's difficult, you know, figure out what it is that's difficult. Go, oh, I see what's going on. Like the pick is going this direction here and that direction here, and that's a little weird. So there's always like one part, or maybe it's part of the, you know, finger thing you got to do with the left hand to make something work. Just really focus on that. Use a metronome and slow it down to where you can get it, and realize where the tough spot is, and really work on that part. Kind of like micro target that part of the difficult thing, and just work on that until you get it. Let's see. Do I transcribe other musicians' solos a lot, or do I prefer to write my own licks for improving playing? It's a little bit of both. I love transcribing other people's solos, and I think it's really beneficial, and I should actually do more of it, because I feel like if I don't do that stuff, or I'm, kind of the hobbyist side of learning other people's licks and ingesting them, and then it comes out as your own. If I don't do that, I get stuck into my own kind of patterns a lot, and I need to work on other people's stuff more. I think lately that's the way I'm feeling. Love sitting there writing my own stuff, but it's some of the biggest periods of growth in my own playing have been when I've ingested other types of players' solos and stuff like that. Going, oh, I never would have thought of doing that way, and it's always really cool to do that stuff. Let's see. You can spend 2 months on learning chords and the notes in them and do more than banging on the guitar for 5 years. Understand what you're playing, says, this is from the Sonic Solution. Bluegrass helps because it's so theory-based. That is really true. I remember there's a lot of truth in that statement. I remember my teacher at MI saying that he once spent just a few months playing only arpeggios over chords, over chord changes. So really target, instead of just improvising, playing licks or whatever over a, maybe a backing track, he would just play the arpeggios of the chords that were going by in a backing track, maybe, and really find all the notes on the neck. And I really think there's a lot to that. If you can be more of a sort of chord tone centric based player and really know where those chord tones are, then you can play around them. And when you choose, you can land on the, so really understand the changes of the songs you're playing. It's a sort of more jazz-based approach than a rock-based approach, I guess. Think more like a jazz player, less scales and modes and stuff like that, and more chord tones. And then you can really put a lot of melody and stuff into your playing. It's something that when you hear Tim Pierce play, for example, even within a rock or rock blues context, he's got that obviously completely dialed. Where when you're watching him play over changes, he really, it sounds beautiful and melodic and makes a lot of sense because he's really targeting when the chords are going by. And rock players are sometimes not, the best at that. But and I didn't come from a jazz background, so I can tend to get stuck into the boxes sometimes and stuff like that. But lately, a lot more I try and, go for that. Like really understand the changes as they're going by and target those chord tones. So when you hear solos that I come up with and stuff for videos that I make or whatever on YouTube, many times I might not be the fastest at it, like improvising right off the spot, but when I'm coming up with a solo, it's like, I'm thinking a lot about the chord tones. Going, oh, okay, yeah, that there, and it goes here when it changed, and then I kind of cut the solo or whatever with that in mind. Hopefully that makes sense. So, what else? Wondering if I've ever considered doing an album with my fellow YouTubers, says Evil Musician. Well, I am, like I was saying, like Tim's going to be on the new record, as well as Laurie Basilio, some really great players. So I am doing some collaborations on the new album. Not a complete record of that, but I am getting some folks involved for a few tunes for sure. Maybe later on down the road, I'd love to do something like that. Thoughts on the Nag Steve Stevens guitar? It's really cool. I have one. It's great. I used that guitar a lot on tour in 2015. Really good. I'm going to eat this right now because I'm hungry. Let's see here. How did my Musicom Lab Mark V work out on the inaugural run? It was great. Gonna get more coffee. Flawless. The Musicom Lab switchers are killer. So, if you guys need a good switcher, can't recommend it enough. I mean, I'm really comfortable working on them because I've used them since the Mark III. So I've had a Mark III, a Mark IV, and now 5. So you sort of get used to a certain switcher and the way that it's programmed, and that it's no different than getting used to an amp or a guitar or anything like that. So I became really just comfortable using the Musicom Lab switchers, and that's a big part of why I use them. But they also sound great, and they're a nice size. So there's many things I do like about it. Not that there's not other great ones out there. There is. I'm a really big fan of the RJM as well. RJM wouldn't have fit on my new board, so kind of had to go the route of the Musicom no matter what. But RJM makes beautiful stuff. Really, really good. So I'm gonna sit over here for a while, mix it up. I gotta go soon, but I've got about another at least 15 minutes, something like that, 10, 15 minutes, and I gotta split. Reminder, Pete Thorn story. You said you had a funny story on your last broadcast. Okay, all right, so I'll tell my Pete Thorn story, because a lot of people mistake Pete Thorn, Pete Thorn. I was in line at the Viper Room in LA to go in and see a show, and I was on a guest list. So I got to the front of the line, and they said, "What's your name?" I said, I'm Pete Thorn, and I went inside the club, walked in, and so some girl comes up to me, like right after I get in the club. I'm standing there waiting for the band to start, and she comes up, she goes, "Pete?" And I go, "Yeah," and she's like, "I was just wondering what you were thinking when you wrote that song, da 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 da," right? And I was like, it was hard to hear because it was loud in the club and stuff. I'm like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? What song?" And she goes, "You know that song on your album, such and such." And I went like, and I'm familiar with Pete Thorn, so I was like, "Oh, you think I'm Pete Thorn?" I was like, "I'm not Pete Thorn, sorry," you know. And she goes, "I just heard you use his name at the door to get in." I was like, "No, no, 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 no." And she's like, "You asshole." She turned around and walked away before I could explain. But she thought that I was lying and saying that I was somebody I wasn't to get into the club. It's like, no, I just have a similar sounding name. But I never got to explain it. But yeah, she called me an asshole. I didn't think that was very nice. That's my Pete Thorn story. I've never met the guy. Be good to meet him someday. Funny story, there is another Pete Thorn, and we have a similar email. That's one letter off, not quite the same. There's many Pete Thorns, I'm sure, but there's another one in the world that has a very similar email to me, and this person would get a lot of my email, and I think they found me. I can't remember, maybe through my website or something like that, but you know, because I have an email on my website. They contacted me and said, "I think I've been getting email for you," and I was like, "Oh, really?" And you know, this person would then start forwarding me my emails that they thought, and it was like some really important emails. I remember one was for a while Trent Reznor was emailing me about Nine Inch Nails stuff, and was emailing the wrong person. And what was the other one? Oh, the U.S. government was emailing me about back when I was working on a green card and stuff like that. And they try and get that right, like change your email with the government. It's not going to happen. So this guy would get really, really important emails, and it was about my green card stuff, you know, and he would forward them to me. So it was so nice of him to do that. And so he's in Copenhagen. He was a college student, you know, in Denmark. So I remember going through there on tour with Chris Cornell and playing and saying like, "Hey, we're going to be in town. You want to come to the show?" And he was like, "Sure." So he came out and met me. So I met another dude with my same name that was, you know, really nice person. Would send me emails. Still does, like every now and then. Doesn't happen that much anymore, but kind of funny. Any new gear purchases? Well, not really, other than my new pedalboard and stuff like that. Has new stuff on it. I've still got the AX8 here, which is great. I really like it actually, and I've been using it. I'm gonna use it. I think maybe what I should do is record a song for this record, like, and try and bust it out within the next couple of weeks here, where I use all the modelers, like every single one, the AX8, the Kemper, and the Helix, and just put them all on one track, and I'll come up with some kitschy name for it. See if people can tell which one I used for which part. Romaine is asking, how did I get to play with Milan Farmer? It was a similar situation to actually the one I described for Tioshi. It was a mutual friend that recommended me to somebody. Somebody got a call and they said they couldn't do it, so they said call this guy, and they got a call from a headhunter type person that puts musicians together with bands. Said, would you be interested in doing this French tour and come out and audition? So I did. Yeah. Max is asking how much of my income is from YouTube demos for companies and AdSense and stuff. Well, I don't really want to get into income exactly, but I will say this. There's the work that I'm doing on my own now, like YouTube stuff and demos and my own music sales and all that kind of stuff, has become much more of a big part of what I do exponentially over the years. So, and that feels really good, working towards kind of more working for myself rather than constantly needing to rely on a tour or working for someone else. just kind of building a small business almost, really. And so it feels great, and I hope it continues, because it's kind of the dream, I think, to be able to do exactly what you want, work for yourself, and have some sense of security. Yeah. Does my room tone vary from my band tone? More or less bass, mids, treble. That's from Carlos. Don't quite know what that means, but I'm going to try it. Does my room tone vary from my band tone? Like the sound of the amp in the room? I always find it, no matter what, you kind of, at the end of the day, what the crowd is going to hear, or what people are going to hear on recording, is the mic'd sound, right, of your amp or whatever. So almost the way the amp sounds on stage or in the room is of less, consequence to me than the sound that the microphone ends up hearing. So I'm constantly thinking about that, like where the mics are placed on the guitar speaker. Like in a live environment, for example, a lot of people, just the sound men will come up and they'll put the mics on the cabinet and go, there it is. Well, it's kind of their job to do that, and you got to give them the leeway to put them kind of where they want them. But many times I'll look at it and go like, and then you'll get a comment like, the guitar's too bright, can you turn the treble down? And I'll be like, well, can I move the microphone a little bit instead? Because I'm seeing that it's like almost in the center of the cone of the speaker. And you have to kind of say it in a diplomatic way, because you don't want to come off like you don't know what you're doing putting the mics on the cabinet. But you have to say like, hey, let me just try and move the microphone a little bit, see if it's going to give you what you want. I'll put it back if not. And, because you know how it is. You know your amp, you know your guitar, you know the way that it sounds good. And then if there's something drastically wrong coming through the PA or maybe getting recorded, it's probably another part of the chain that it could be, right? And so generally that can be the microphone on the cabinet and where the mic is placed. So rather than, messing with your amp settings and stuff like that, if you know your amp sounds good a certain way, check that out. I would say that's a primary. I kind of got off on a different thing there, but that it really applies. Like, look at where the mic is on the speaker if you're not digging the sound in the house, in the PA, or maybe on a recording. See if you can play with the miking to get it where you want it. My PT Signature 212 comes with G12M65s. Could I talk about them? Actually, it doesn't. It comes with Creamback 75s. Those are the speakers in the PT 212. The Creamback 75s are a great all-around speaker, kind of a G12H30 style speaker with a little bit more extended top end and low end than your standard Greenback might have. More G12H30. I find that that's a really nice all-round kind of speaker for clean sounds as well as for dirty sounds. I love Greenbacks, but specifically I love Greenbacks for their kind of anywhere from edgy, crunchy tones through dirty tones. Greenbacks can be a little dull on clean cleans, I find. So that's where the G12H30 thing comes in. They get a little more sparkle on the top end, a little more fullness with the heavier magnet. So that's really why we chose the Creamback 75s. A little more full range speaker than the 65 Creamback or a Greenback. Now, that said, I really want to actually try the Neo Creambacks, which is a Greenback flavored speaker, but it's a Neo magnet speaker, so it's very light. Really sounds like a nice Greenback to me. I tried them at Celestion a while ago, over a year ago now, and I just loved them. They sent some to Sir for me to check out in one of my cabinets, and we haven't gotten around to trying them yet. So I really got to give those a go, because those are killer sounding speakers, and they will drop a substantial amount of weight off of a 212 and certainly a 412. So that's really good. Okay. Did I get into Gary Moore? I really dig Gary Moore. I thought he's great. Not like I'm not like a huge aficionado. I don't know his whole career or the different, but Gary's an interesting player because he kind of went through the real hard rock. Obviously Thin Lizzy, and then like was that album Victim of Changes? Or no, I got the song wrong. That was a Judas Priest song, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember the Gary Moore. When he used to play the Fiesta Red Strat or whatever, or maybe it was the sort of pink Strat in the early 80s, and did way more kind of hard rock, and then he went way blues after that into the 90s, obviously with huge success. Kind of a smart thing to do as you get older as a guitar player, move into a blues career. It's like you can play blues up till the day you die. People like it. Makes sense. he was a beast on guitar. He was amazing. Somebody saying he was a beast. Bill says I'm inspiring him to play with low output humbuckers. I don't think people appreciate them as much. Would love to try the Thornbuckers. Please do. Yeah, they're really nice low output humbuckers. I think you might dig them if you dig that. Let's see here. Are there any videos of me playing with Don Henley? Very few. I found like one online, and the reason is Don doesn't like YouTube really, and doesn't like the people uploading footage. So a lot of that stuff gets pulled off of YouTube. He's he's got a point. I mean, he's comes from the school of like having control over what comes out creatively, and the quality of things. He's really into quality. He doesn't like cell phone videos and things like that. He wants it to sound great and doesn't feel like that's the best representation of his music. And also there's the legal aspect of uploading stuff, and so he comes from that old school. So consequently, there's not much out there. If you notice, you search for Eagles and Don, there's just not much out there. There's a couple things online, but very little from the time that I spent playing with them. So, have you ever hated anybody in a band so much it turned the whole band for you? Many times in bands or in touring outfits, there's one guy that always seems to rub people the wrong way or whatever. Hopefully, it's not me in those situations. But I will say this: like with any touring situation or studio situation or band or whatever, there's always a few things to consider, and this might go for just about any job. But I always say there's three things: there's the money, there's the music, and there's the hang. And you can have any two of those things, and it'll make it worthwhile. One is not enough. So if the money's really great on a gig, but the hang sucks and the music's no good, you're going to be miserable, no matter how much money you're making. But if the money's good, the hang's good, even if you don't dig the music that much, it's like, well, I'm playing with my friends and I'm making money. That can work. If you've got all three, though, if the gig pays well, and if you're playing with your buddies and it's great, and the music's awesome, what more could you ask for? That's the dream. So let's see. You can also have obviously great music and a great hang, and the money kind of sucks. But it's like, oh well, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm loving playing music with my pals. So that's good too. Any thoughts on on using the Bogner Cube for use in an apartment? I have one and love it. That's the cabinet that I used all over Guitar Nerd, and it's great. You can bury it in a closet with a microphone on it too, like I used to, and get some great tones. So they're great little 112 cabs. Sounds really full, really good. If I haven't made it as a professional musician, what would my dream job be? I think I would have maybe been a doctor. I find it, I don't know. I think I could have gone, had I been able to hang, which is questionable, but in college, if I could have made it through med school, I think I would have been most interested in that, because I'm interested in it. So, yeah, I think I could have gone and done that. Have I tried a Friedman Runt 50? I have. Nice amplifier. Do I like France, and why? And what is the word you can say in French? I can say je ne comprends pas. I don't understand. No. Do I like France? I love France, man. France is a hell of a country. I mean, I could live there. The nice thing about France is it's really varied, like from the north to the south. It's a big enough country that there's some similarity to a place like the U.S. in that, you've got different weather north to south. You've got different, it's a much a different looking place, different regions, different, and, culturally, it actually, I don't know. Does it vary that much culturally from the north to the south? I'm not really sure, but it's a wonderful country. Like I love France. It's a great place. I could totally live there and be happy. The food's great. People like to having a good time there and having enjoying your life is really important. They have a short work week. I think they have the shortest work week in Europe or something like 35 hours a week or something. But they really take their time to appreciate their life and have a good time. So I think that's a great thing about France. It's a terrific country. I love the time I spent there, and I could definitely live there. Direct recording guitars via Torpedo versus miking. I love miking, it's great, and I still love to do it, and it's super fun, but it sure is a lot easier doing the load box stuff these days. So I do both, split it, about equal, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm trying to get something done fast, I know I can get great results with the load box and some IRs, so I'll go that way. If I've got a little more time and I really want to geek out, sometimes I'll still mic stuff. What else here? Page down a bit in the chat. I'm sorry if I've missed some of your questions. Doing the best I can. Hello from Alberta says, what's up, homie? How did my pedalboard work out on stage in Japan? Perfect. It was great. I should mention my pedalboard is switching power supplies in it, so I can use it in Japan all the way to Europe without needing to, do step up or step down transformers. That's a nice thing about those Friedman power grid power supplies. Works really well. Okay. Was ready to get a Helix or Headrush, but now there's Synergy building new small guitar studio. Syn 2 seems the way to go. This is this new Synergy amplifier or sort of modules. They're really cool. I think they work great. I would probably use one of those if you were thinking of doing a small studio in conjunction with something like a Helix, because you can use the Helix for effects, then run them in front of the Syn 2 and then post the Syn 2 as well. That would be a cool studio setup, because you're still going to need some effects, right? Am I older than I look? I don't know. How old do you think I am? Let's see. I have an HSS guitar. Oh, I'm way back in the chat. The YouTube chat dilemma. I'm back I don't know how I missed questions and how I'm back like an hour from where, anyway. We'll move forward a little bit here. Guys, I've only got about another 5 minutes, and I got to split. Diana says, been working on Groomed Noodler track from Jam Track Central. Thanks for the great inspiration. Thank you. And arthritis. Sorry about that. You hear Randy, Rush, and Paul McCartney in there. That's interesting. I can hear all that, I guess. Those are all influences for sure. Will I be at NAMM? I will be at NAMM, probably at the Sir booth a lot. Don't know when yet, but I'm going to be there 3 days, I think. Does the Boss FZ2 do everything I want in a fuzz? I wouldn't say everything. No, it doesn't do the roll down, like clean up fuzz face thing, but it does a great Octavia kind of sound, and it works well with buffers. So it's a cool fuzz pedal for sure for a pedal board. See, there's so many different varieties of fuzz that it's kind of like saying, would a Marshall Plexi 50 do everything you want in a guitar amp? Well, it's not going to do AC30, and it's not going to do super reverb, So it's like you kind of need a few different things, but So I've played both Soundgarden and Audioslave music between Kim and Tom Morello. Who was more influential to you? I should mention that Chris played a lot of the guitar on Soundgarden stuff too, so we can't discount. A lot of people don't know that, and Chris was almost maybe I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for the guitar that he played on a lot of the music. And as he described it, and Kim's awesome, and his obviously he was great, but we got to give Kim equal billing as well as Chris, in Soundgarden, because Chris played a lot of the guitar and came up with a lot of the parts, and a lot of the guitar parts, I believe, were also like Matt Cameron or Ben. They all brought songs in and came up with. They all wrote. So there was an interesting kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like an equal opportunity sort of songwriting thing going on there. I don't think there was like, this person plays this role. I mean, definitely Kim was like, those solos and stuff. That was his unique, and nobody plays like him. But yeah, Chris played a lot of those guitar parts and came up with a lot of them. And also, he told me a story once that Kim liked to just have Chris dial in a sound for him and then hand him the guitar. So he said he'd sometimes be lying on the floor in the studio, and he'd be like, this dial in sound, get it all ready for me, and then he'd hand him the guitar, and then Kim would play the part. So it was a real collaborative kind of guitar effort, I think, on both their parts. So that's interesting info. Tom's awesome. Morello's like, kind of kept he did his own thing, but he kept the guitar solo alive almost through the 90s, right? As well as Kim, you know, doing this kind of freak out psychedelic thing. I can't pick, really. They were both great. Love, you know, they're both are playing. I mean, Soundgarden, you know, the music is like, as far as heavy music goes, I mean, that's my jam. You know, the whole Super Unknown kind of trip is that album, is that band becoming fully realized in their writing and just doing amazing stuff that's heavy and melodic and beautiful all at the same time. Um, I was talking to Dave Friedman about heavy music the other day, and he was saying a lot of new stuff. He's like, it just doesn't strike him as like, you know, like, and he was saying, you know, like Soundgarden sounded like it was. I totally, without, I gotta go soon, but he was just, you know, like, how do you capture that? And there was something about Soundgarden where they could do that heavy, beautiful, melodic, but heavy, you know, heavy, really heavy. So, you know, 4th of July, it's like the heaviest shit ever to me. Amazing. Okay. Gotta run, so I'm gonna take like 2 more questions, guys, and then I'll see you next week. But let's see. Do Japanese approach guitar differently? I would say that they approach it in a very sort of you know, the Japanese, they work hard and they try and nail stuff. So it's like, I don't know if it's different or not, but you're going to see a high level of proficiency there and a high level of attention to detail and really practicing to get things right. More so than maybe there's certainly like a, you know, punk rock and stuff that goes on there too, but there's a lot of the like really technical stuff in Japan. So I would say there's a real focus on the, you know, you go in a guitar shop in Japan and it sounds like the music they're playing is always the shreddy kind of like technically really high level stuff. So they've got that focus in Japan to a great degree, I think, without wanting to stereotype too much, because there's certainly, you know, they love blues there, and Ichiro, you know, the other guitar player in the band that I play in, he's incredible blues guitar player. So, but I do see a lot of the kind of shreddy technical stuff there. So, have you ever met the guys from Tool? No, I haven't. My friend Lance plays bass with Danny Carey though in a band called Volta, but I've never met him. I've never even seen one of their gigs. I want to go see him sometime. What pickups in my Red 335? They're originals. There's a patent number in the bridge, early patent number, and a PAF in the neck. Record some gear demos. I need them. I'm going to back to work, like basically now, starting today on getting videos done. Mailman is killer. It certainly is. That's a great Soundgarden track. Absolutely. That whole album is like the Sgt. Pepper's of the 90s to me. Okay, one more question, then I gotta run. What am I gonna pick here? Let's see. Difference between OD100 SE Classic and PT100. The SE is a much more kind of high gain, full range sort of affair. It's got 6L6s, I believe. Modern, stiffer filtering. Classic is closer to, you know, the classic sort of Marshall voicing, but still going to be, I would say, maybe darker full range compared to the PT100, which has that kind of lower filtering, more plexi, more old Marshall in the distortion characteristic. So that would be the best that I can kind of do the breakdown. You're kind of moving from modern distortion through to the kind of the more classic. Not, I think my amp probably has just about as much gain as an SE, but it's in the voicing and the filtering and stuff like that that makes it maybe feel a little softer and have that more kind of, you know, less modern, a little bit more vintage Marshall. Do I own a Hedgehog? Yes, I do. I love it. All right, I gotta go, you guys. Thanks for dealing with my my BS with the technical stuff earlier. And some guy says, fuck me. Fuck you too. Hopefully you're kidding. Be nice. He's probably kidding. All right. Let's not go out on that. I got to take one more question. One more question. And then I'll get out of here. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? What's the best mic or mics for live performance? That's a good question. You can't go wrong with an SM57. They always work. Having said that, probably one of my favorite live mics that I've ever heard is the AT4050. Terrific sounding, large diaphragm condenser. They're not too expensive, and they just sound great on live guitars. Been out for a long time. They probably have a newer version of it out now, but the Audio-Technica 4050 is a terrific, terrific live guitar mic, and also a great all-round studio mic. And been meaning to get one for a long time. Used them on a couple different tours. Always sounded great, and I've also heard other people using them live and been like, what is the guitar mic they're using? It sounds awesome in the PA, and it's generally a 4050. Okay, guys, I got to run. Thanks so much, and I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and thanks for dealing with the technical stuff. I'll have it more together next week. Yeah, but it seems to be working good, this OBS software. All right, take it easy. Have a great week. I'm getting to work doing videos this week again and stuff, getting geared up for NAMM. And like I said, there's going to be more stuff coming this week that's cool, like with some videos that are coming out that I've been doing in conjunction with someone else. And it's going to be some good stuff. So it's going to be a series of 4 videos coming out, all kind of working up to a new album release. So, all right, thanks, everybody. Cheers. Have a good rest of your week.